There is a quiet realization spreading through this generation, one that many people feel but struggle to articulate. The old promises no longer feel reliable. Work hard, stay loyal, wait your turn, and eventually security will arrive. For decades, that story shaped entire lives. But the modern age has exposed its fragility. Jobs disappear overnight. Industries shift without warning. Inflation erodes certainty. And in this new landscape, business books have begun telling a different story, not about climbing someone else's ladder, but about building your own ground to stand on. This is the story of creating your own economy. The idea sounds bold, even rebellious, but at its core, it is deeply practical. To create your own economy is not to reject society or escape responsibility. It is to stop outsourcing your financial destiny to systems you do not control. Modern business books, from Company of One to The $100 Startup, from the Almanac of Naval Ravikant to Built to Sell, all circle the same truth. Resilience no longer comes from scale alone. It comes from leverage, ownership, and adaptability. Imagine a professional in the middle of their career. They followed the rules, built skills, earned promotions, and yet a single restructuring meeting erased years of perceived stability. What shook them most was not the loss of income, but the realization that their entire economic life depended on decisions made in rooms they were never invited into. Business books written for this era exist to respond to that shock. They teach that modern security is not a job, it is optionality. One of the most powerful shifts these books introduce is redefining what a business actually is. In the modern age, a business does not need employees, offices, or massive capital. It can be a skill combined with distribution, knowledge paired with leverage, a product that works while you sleep. Company of One challenges the assumption that growth is always the goal. Instead, it asks a radical question. What if the point of business is not to get bigger, but to get freer? That single question changes how you think about work forever. Another recurring theme in modern business literature is the idea of asymmetric upside. Books like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant explain that traditional jobs trade time for money in a linear way. You show up, you get paid, and the transaction ends. But creating your own economy means building things that can scale without proportional effort: content, software, intellectual property, systems. This does not mean easy money. It means delayed gratification. Effort up front, leverage later. Risk now, optionality later. The books emphasize that while this path is harder emotionally at first, it is far more resilient over time. What these books also make painfully clear is that the modern economy rewards those who take responsibility for their learning. No institution can keep pace with change. Skills decay, tools evolve. Business books for the modern age repeatedly stress self-education as an economic act. Learning how to learn becomes more valuable than any single credential. Those who build their own economy treat knowledge as capital. They invest in it continuously, knowing it compounds just like money. Then there is the shift in how value is created. Older business thinking emphasized efficiency within systems. Modern business books emphasize differentiation within networks. Your voice, your perspective, your way of solving problems. Creating your own economy often begins with embracing what makes you non-replaceable rather than trying to fit neatly into existing roles. This is uncomfortable advice because it requires exposure. It requires putting ideas into the world before you feel ready. But the books are clear. Invisibility is the greatest risk of the modern age. Another lesson that emerges is the importance of small bets. Instead of betting everything on one employer, one product, one identity, modern business thinking encourages experimentation. Side projects, pilot offerings, micro businesses. These are not distractions, they are hedges. Each small experiment teaches you something about markets, about yourself, about leverage. Over time, these experiments form a personal economic ecosystem that is far more robust than a single income stream. Yet these books are not naive. They do not promise freedom without discipline. In fact, they are often brutally honest about the cost. Creating your own economy requires self-management at a level most people are not prepared for. No boss means no external structure. No guaranteed paycheck means no excuses. The modern business books emphasize systems, routines, and clarity of priorities because freedom without structure quickly becomes chaos. Autonomy must be earned through discipline. As these ideas accumulate, a new definition of success begins to take shape. Success is no longer tied to titles or company size. It is tied to control over time, flexibility of income, and alignment between work and values. People who create their own economy may earn more or less than before, but they experience a different quality of life. Less fear, more choice, more agency. The books describe this not as an escape from work, but as a reorientation toward work that actually supports life. What makes these books so compelling is that they do not ask you to burn bridges. They ask you to build options, to slowly reduce dependency, to gradually shift from being a consumer of opportunity to a creator of it. The process is rarely dramatic. It happens quietly after work hours, on weekends, through long periods of uncertainty. And yet, over time, the compounding effect is undeniable. When you step back, you realize that creating your own economy is not about entrepreneurship in the traditional sense. It is about sovereignty, economic sovereignty, the ability to absorb shocks without collapse, the ability to adapt without begging permission, the ability to define success on your own terms. Modern business books do not romanticize this path, but they make one thing clear. In a world that changes faster than institutions, building something you control is no longer a luxury. It is a form of self-defense. And as this realization settles in, a deeper question emerges: not what business should I start, but what kind of economic life do I want to design? Because once you begin thinking this way, every decision looks different. Skills become assets, time becomes capital, attention becomes currency, and you begin to sense that the real divide in the modern age is not between employees and entrepreneurs, but between those who have built personal leverage and those who remain fully dependent on external systems. And it is at this point where dependency gives way to design that the deeper lessons of these business books begin to reveal themselves, showing how people transition from survival to strategy, from reacting to creating, and from participating in the economy to shaping a small but meaningful economy of their own. And this is where the next part of the story truly begins. As we explore how these ideas translate into real-world choices, daily behaviors, and long-term resilience, moving forward together into the architecture of self-made economic security moves forward together into the architecture of self-made economic security like a structure designed not to impress from the outside, but to endure stress from within. And this is where the idea of creating your own economy leaves the realm of inspiration and enters the discipline of daily choice. The business books written for the modern age converge on a single, sobering realization. Independence is not granted, it is assembled, piece by piece, decision by decision. Those who successfully create their own economy do not wake up one morning free from dependence. They slowly redesign their lives so that no single failure can undo them. They replace fragility with redundancy. One income becomes two. One skill becomes a portfolio of capabilities. One audience becomes a distribution channel they own. This is not ambition for its own sake, it is risk management for an unpredictable world. As these books move from philosophy into practice, they begin emphasizing leverage over labor. Not leverage in the reckless financial sense, but leverage of effort. Writing once, selling many times. Learning once, applying forever. Building systems that reduce repeated decision making. The modern business builder learns that the goal is not to work harder than everyone else, but to ensure that each unit of effort travels further. This is why ownership matters so deeply. When you own the output, effort compounds. When you rent your time, it resets every day. Another critical lesson emerges around patience with uncertainty. Creating your own economy rarely feels stable at first. In fact, it often feels more unstable than traditional employment. Income fluctuates, validation is delayed, progress is uneven. The books are honest about this discomfort because they know it is the filter. Most people turn back not because the path is impossible, but because the early ambiguity feels intolerable. Those who persist learn to see uncertainty not as danger, but as a signal that they are building something real rather than merely maintaining something inherited. Over time, the mindset shifts again. The creator stops asking, "How do I make more money?" and starts asking, "How do I reduce dependency?" This reframing changes everything. Decisions become calmer. Growth becomes intentional. The focus moves from chasing opportunity to designing stability. Modern business books insist that true freedom does not come from maximum income, but from minimum obligation. When your needs are modest and your systems are resilient, even small ventures can support meaningful lives. What surprises many readers is how personal this journey becomes. Creating your own economy forces clarity about values, about how much is enough, about what trade-offs are acceptable, about what kind of life the business is meant to support. The books do not glorify endless hustle. In fact, they quietly criticize it. A self-made economy that consumes your health, relationships, or peace is not freedom. It is another form of dependence. The most successful modern builders design businesses that serve life, not replace it. As years pass, the compounding becomes visible, not just financially, but psychologically. Confidence grows, not the loud kind, but the grounded kind. The confidence of knowing that no single employer, algorithm, or market swing has total control over your future. This is the quiet reward these books promise. Not escape from effort, but insulation from chaos. Not immunity to hardship, but the ability to respond without panic. And eventually, a final transformation occurs. The person who once felt at the mercy of the economy realizes they are no longer just participating in it, they are shaping a small corner of it. Their skills create value. Their systems distribute it. Their choices determine how dependent or resilient their life becomes. This is what modern business books truly offer. Not a business plan, but a lens. A way of seeing work, income, and risk through the frame of sovereignty rather than submission. This is the quiet ending of the story. Creating your own economy is not about becoming untouchable. It is about becoming adaptable. It is about building enough control to weather change without losing dignity, enough leverage to grow without burning out, enough ownership to ensure that your effort leaves something behind. In an age defined by volatility, this is no longer an optional ambition. It is a practical response to reality. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to ask yourself a simple question. Where does your economic life feel most dependent right now? Awareness is the first blueprint. Share that reflection. And if you want to keep exploring how modern business thinking, leverage, and long-term design can help you build an economy that works for you rather than against you, stay connected. Subscribe, follow, and return. Because the future does not belong to those who wait for stability, it belongs to those who quietly build it.